Ladies and gentlemen, I want to talk to you today about a concept that haunts us all, whether we acknowledge it or not: the passing of time. 1 year, 365 days. Seems like a long stretch of moments, but it isn't. And if you're not careful, you'll find yourself a year older, no wiser, and further away from the life you could have built. So I ask you, what are you doing with your time? Life is short. It's a phrase we've all heard countless times, yet its profound truth often eludes us. Our days may seem endless as they stretch before us, but they're not. Each one is finite, and the accumulation of those days, our lives, is fleeting. What we do with the time we're given matters, and it matters profoundly. Wasting time, therefore, is not a trivial mistake. It's a fundamental betrayal of the potential within us. You see, the value of life is not determined by how long we live, but by what we do with the time we have. A life filled with aimless drifting, passive consumption, or avoidance of challenges is, in essence, a life unfulfilled. On the other hand, a life dedicated to meaningful pursuits can be vibrant and rich, even if it's shorter than we'd like. Meaning isn't handed to us, it's crafted through our choices and actions. And the pursuit of meaning starts with goals. Goals are the structures upon which we build our lives. Without them, our days lose shape and direction, much like a house without a frame. Think about it. When you wake up in the morning, what determines the flow of your day? Is it dictated by external forces like emails, demands from others, or the endless scroll of entertainment? Or is it shaped by a clear sense of purpose, a plan you've set for yourself, driven by what truly matters to you? The answer to this question often reveals whether you're actively living or merely existing. When you allow life to flow unchecked, its default state is inertia. Time slips away as you follow the path of least resistance, and before you know it, weeks, months, or even years have passed with little to show for them. And yet, this isn't because people are lazy or incapable. It's often because they haven't clarified what they're aiming for. Without a target, there's no way to focus your efforts. Setting meaningful goals is a remedy for this drift. A meaningful goal is not the same as a superficial desire. It's not about chasing status, approval, or the fleeting pleasures of material gain. Instead, it's about identifying what aligns with your deepest values, those things that matter so profoundly to you that working toward them feels inherently worthwhile, even when it's difficult. Meaningful goals provide a sense of direction and a reason to persevere, even when faced with obstacles. But here's where the complexity arises. Meaningful goals are not always easy to identify. They require introspection and honesty, which can be uncomfortable. Many people avoid this step, preferring instead to adopt generic aspirations like making more money or getting in shape, without understanding why those goals matter to them. To truly benefit from goal setting, you must ask yourself hard questions. What kind of life do I want to create? What kind of person do I want to be? What legacy do I want to leave behind? These questions are daunting, but they're essential. Once you've identified your goals, the next challenge is committing to them. A goal without action is merely a wish. And action, as we know, requires effort, discipline, and the willingness to confront failure. But here's the beauty of having a goal that truly resonates with you. It motivates you to act, not because you have to, but because you want to. When you're working towards something meaningful, the effort itself becomes part of the reward. Goals also create a sense of urgency. When you know what you're aiming for, you're less likely to waste time on distractions or trivialities. You begin to see time for what it truly is, a precious, irreplaceable resource. Every hour spent mindlessly scrolling, every day lost to procrastination, is an hour and a day you'll never get back. And while it's tempting to tell yourself there's always tomorrow, the truth is there's no guarantee of that. All you have is today, and the choices you make in this moment will determine the course of your life. But let's not confuse urgency with haste. Living with purpose doesn't mean rushing through life in a constant state of stress. It means prioritizing what matters and focusing your energy on what moves you closer to your goals. It's about quality over quantity, quality of effort, quality of experience, and quality of relationships. When you live this way, time becomes your ally rather than your enemy. Instead of feeling like life is slipping away, you feel like you're actively creating it. There's also an important psychological shift that occurs when you pursue meaningful goals. You begin to see yourself as an active participant in your own life rather than a passive observer. This sense of agency is empowering. It helps you navigate challenges with resilience and adapt to setbacks with a problem-solving mindset. And perhaps most importantly, it fosters a sense of fulfillment that transcends momentary pleasures. When you're working towards something meaningful, you're not just passing the time, you're living it. Now, this doesn't mean the path will be easy. In fact, it's often the pursuit of meaningful goals that tests us the most. But those tests are precisely what make life rich and rewarding. The struggles, the sacrifices, the moments of doubt, all of these are part of the journey. And when you look back, it's not the easy days you'll remember. It's the days when you pushed through adversity and emerged stronger on the other side. So don't let another year slip away without purpose. Take the time to reflect on what matters to you, set goals that align with those values, and commit to them wholeheartedly. Because while life may be short, its meaning is as vast as the effort you're willing to put into it. Chaos is an inherent part of life. From the moment we are born, we are thrust into a world of unpredictability, complexity, and uncertainty. This isn't a flaw in existence, it's simply how the world is structured. The challenge lies in how we respond to it. Chaos left unchecked can grow, consume, and overwhelm, leaving us feeling powerless and directionless. But the antidote to chaos isn't avoidance or denial, it's responsibility. Taking responsibility is what allows us to bring order to the chaos, and in doing so, we carve out a life of purpose and stability amidst the turmoil. Avoidance might seem like an easy solution. After all, ignoring problems or pretending they don't exist spares us from immediate discomfort. But this approach is deceptive. Chaos doesn't dissipate when ignored, it grows. Small problems, when left unaddressed, often snowball into larger ones. A cluttered room becomes an overwhelming mess. A small disagreement in a relationship festers into a deep rift. A missed deadline at work sets off a cascade of failures. In every case, the avoidance of responsibility leads to more disorder, more stress, and ultimately more suffering. Taking responsibility, on the other hand, is the act of confronting chaos head-on. It's about acknowledging the mess, whether it's external or internal, and taking steps to address it. This isn't easy. Responsibility often involves discomfort, effort, and the possibility of failure, but it's also the only way to reclaim control over your life. When you take responsibility, you're no longer a passive victim of circumstances. You become an active participant in shaping your reality. Responsibility begins with recognition. You must first identify where chaos exists in your life. This requires honesty and courage because it's much easier to pretend that everything is fine. But deep down, we all know where the cracks are. It could be in your personal relationships, your work habits, your health, or even your mental and emotional well-being. Wherever the chaos resides, you must face it. This is the first step toward bringing order to disorder. Once you've identified the chaos, the next step is to act. Action is what transforms intention into reality. But here's the thing. You don't have to tackle everything at once. In fact, trying to address all of life's chaos in one sweeping effort is a recipe for failure. Instead, start small. Find one area where you can make a difference and focus your efforts there. It could be as simple as organizing your workspace, having a difficult but necessary conversation, or committing to a daily routine. Small actions may seem insignificant, but they have a cumulative effect. Over time, these incremental efforts create momentum and lead to significant changes. Taking responsibility also requires a shift in mindset. It's easy to fall into the trap of blaming external factors for the chaos in our lives, our upbringing, our circumstances, other people's actions. And while these factors may contribute to our challenges, they don't absolve us of responsibility. Blame is a form of avoidance. It allows us to shirk accountability and remain stuck in a victim mentality. Responsibility, by contrast, is empowering. When you take ownership of your situation, you recognize that while you may not control everything, you do have the power to influence your response, and that response is what ultimately shapes your life. There's also a profound psychological benefit to taking responsibility. Chaos, by its nature, creates stress and anxiety. It's a source of uncertainty, and our minds are wired to seek order and predictability. When you confront chaos and take responsibility for managing it, you alleviate that stress. You create a sense of stability and control, which in turn fosters confidence and resilience. The very act of facing challenges head-on rather than avoiding them builds your capacity to handle future obstacles. Moreover, taking responsibility doesn't just benefit you, it has a ripple effect on those around you. When you bring order to your own life, you create a stable foundation that others can rely on. This is particularly important in relationships, families, and communities. Chaos is contagious, but so is order. By taking responsibility, you set an example for others and contribute to a collective sense of stability and purpose. However, it's important to acknowledge that responsibility is not the same as perfection. Taking responsibility doesn't mean you'll never make mistakes or encounter setbacks. It's not about eliminating chaos entirely, which is impossible, but about managing it effectively. Life will always throw challenges your way. The question is not whether chaos will arise, but how you will respond to it when it does. Responsibility is a practice, not a destination. It's a continual process of assessing, adjusting, and persevering. It's also worth noting that responsibility doesn't have to be burdensome. While it does involve effort and discipline, it also brings a deep sense of fulfillment. There's a unique satisfaction that comes from knowing you've faced challenges and overcome them. This sense of accomplishment is far more rewarding than the fleeting comfort of avoidance. Responsibility gives your life a sense of purpose and meaning that transcends the immediate moment. It reminds you that your actions matter, not just for yourself, but for the world around you. In the end, the choice is simple but profound. Will you allow chaos to dictate your life, or will you take responsibility and bring order to it? The former path leads to stagnation and regret, while the latter opens the door to growth and fulfillment. Taking responsibility may not always be easy, but it's always worth it. It's the foundation upon which a meaningful and well-lived life is built. So, confront the chaos, take ownership of your situation, and watch as the world begins to transform, starting with you. Change and growth are not about grand, sweeping transformations that occur overnight. Instead, they are the result of small, consistent actions taken over time. This principle might seem almost too simple to be true, but its power is immense. When you commit to making incremental improvements every day, no matter how modest they seem, you set the stage for profound transformation in the long run. Growth, the beauty of this approach is its accessibility. Anyone, regardless of their circumstances, can begin where they are and move towards something better by taking small, deliberate steps. One of the most common reasons people feel stuck in life is the overwhelming nature of large goals. We might dream of being healthier, more successful, or happier, but these aspirations can feel so distant and intimidating that we don't know where to start. The gap between where we are and where we want to be seems insurmountable, and as a result, we do nothing. This paralysis stems from a fundamental misunderstanding. Growth doesn't happen all at once. It happens in increments, and those increments compound over time. Imagine planting a seed. When you first put it in the ground, it's small, unassuming, and easily overlooked. But with consistent care, watering it daily, ensuring it gets sunlight, protecting it from harm, it grows. You won't notice dramatic changes from one day to the next, but after weeks, months, and years, that seed transforms into a thriving plant or a towering tree. Your efforts, though small and seemingly insignificant in the moment, accumulate into something remarkable over time. The same principle applies to every area of life. The concept of compounding is crucial here. In finance, we understand how compound interest allows money to grow exponentially over time. The same idea applies to personal growth. Every small improvement builds upon the previous one, creating a ripple effect. For example, if you decide to read for just 15 minutes a day, you might think, what difference will that make? But in a year, you will have read dozens of books, accumulated knowledge, and perhaps even altered the trajectory of your life. Similarly, if you save a small amount of money each week, over time, you'll create a financial cushion that provides security and opportunities. The key to making small, consistent actions work lies in commitment and patience. It's easy to dismiss minor efforts as unimportant or futile because the results aren't immediately visible. This is where many people falter. They give up too soon, convinced their efforts aren't making a difference. But the truth is, meaningful change often happens below the surface, much like the roots of a tree growing unseen. Progress is happening even if it's not immediately apparent, and persistence is what allows that progress to eventually manifest in visible and impactful ways. Another critical aspect of small, consistent actions is that they are manageable. Large, ambitious goals can feel paralyzing because they demand significant effort and resources. But smaller actions are achievable, even on your worst days. If you want to get fit, for example, you don't need to start with an hour-long workout at the gym. Begin with a 10-minute walk. If you want to improve your career prospects, you don't have to immediately enroll in a demanding course. Start by dedicating a few minutes each day to learning a new skill or updating your resume. These small steps may not feel like much, but they are infinitely better than doing nothing. Furthermore, small actions have a way of building momentum. Taking one step forward, no matter how small, makes the next step easier. This is because progress fuels motivation. When you see even a tiny bit of improvement, it reinforces your belief in your ability to succeed. Over time, this creates a positive feedback loop. Action leads to results, results lead to motivation, and motivation leads to more action. This momentum can carry you further than you ever thought possible. It's also important to recognize that small, consistent actions are not just about reaching a destination. They're about creating habits. Habits are the foundation of long-term success because they automate positive behaviors. When you repeatedly perform an action, it becomes ingrained in your routine, requiring less conscious effort over time. For example, brushing your teeth is a habit you don't have to think about. It's simply part of your day. The same can be true for exercising, studying, or practicing gratitude. By focusing on small actions, you lay the groundwork for habits that sustain and amplify your progress. Another benefit of this approach is that it fosters resilience. Large, ambitious goals can feel fragile. When you encounter setbacks, it's easy to become discouraged and abandon the goal entirely. But small actions are more adaptable. If you miss a day or make a mistake, it's not catastrophic. You can simply pick up where you left off and keep moving forward. This flexibility makes it easier to persevere even when life throws unexpected challenges your way. Finally, the pursuit of small, consistent actions shifts your focus from outcomes to processes. When you're solely fixated on the end goal, you risk becoming impatient or disheartened when progress is slow. But when you focus on the daily actions themselves, on doing your best today, you cultivate a sense of satisfaction and pride in the process. This mindset not only helps you stay committed, but also enhances your overall well-being. You learn to value the journey, not just the destination. In conclusion, the power of small, consistent actions cannot be overstated. They are the foundation of growth, the antidote to overwhelm, and the engine of lasting change. No matter where you are in life, you have the ability to start small and build from there. Whether it's improving your health, advancing your career, or strengthening your relationships, the path forward begins with a single step. And as you continue to take those steps, one after another, you'll discover that even the most ambitious goals are within your reach. Progress may be slow, but it is steady, and over time it becomes extraordinary. Fear is a universal experience, deeply embedded in our psyche as a mechanism for survival. It alerts us to danger, keeps us cautious, and pushes us to assess risks before acting. But while fear has its place in keeping us safe, it can also be a barrier that holds us back from achieving our full potential. Too often, fear paralyzes us. It whispers in our ears that the unknown is too risky, that failure is inevitable, or that we're simply not good enough to succeed. And so we hesitate. We avoid taking the first step. We retreat into what's comfortable, even if it means sacrificing growth and fulfillment. This response to fear, though common, is not inevitable. Fear itself is not the enemy. It's our relationship with fear that determines whether it becomes a barrier or a catalyst. To live a meaningful life, we must learn to confront our fears, to understand them, and to act in spite of them. The act of confronting fear doesn't eliminate it, but it transforms it from a paralyzing force into a motivator for growth. That is a risk worth the reward of success, not just a retreat. At its core, fear thrives on uncertainty. The unknown is intimidating because it lacks clear boundaries or guarantees. When we step into uncharted territory, whether it's pursuing a new career, starting a business, or even expressing our true feelings in a relationship, we face the possibility of failure, rejection, or disappointment. These potential outcomes loom large in our minds, often overshadowing the potential for success, joy, and personal evolution. But here's the thing. Every meaningful achievement lies beyond the realm of certainty. Growth happens when we step outside of what's familiar and embrace the discomfort of the unknown. The first step in confronting fear is acknowledging it. This might sound simple, but it requires a level of self-awareness that many of us avoid. Fear often manifests in subtle ways: procrastination, self-doubt, or a nagging sense of unease. We rationalize our hesitation by telling ourselves it's not the right time, that we're not ready, or that the risks outweigh the rewards. But underneath these justifications lies fear, and until we name it, we can't address it. Once you've acknowledged your fear, the next step is to question it. Fear often operates on assumptions. Assumptions about what might go wrong, about our capabilities, or about how others will perceive us. These assumptions are rarely rooted in fact. They're based on our imagination, amplified by self-doubt and past experiences. By questioning your fear, you begin to dismantle its power. Ask yourself, what am I really afraid of? What's the worst that could happen? And if that worst scenario did occur, how would I handle it? Often you'll find that the reality of the situation is far less daunting than the narrative fear has constructed in your mind. But even when fear persists, it doesn't have to stop you. Courage is not the absence of fear, it's the willingness to act in spite of it. This is a crucial distinction because waiting for fear to disappear before taking action is a recipe for inaction. Fear is a natural response to stepping outside your comfort zone, and its presence is often a sign that you're on the verge of something meaningful. Instead of trying to eliminate fear, learn to carry it with you as you move forward. Taking action is the most effective way to diminish fear's hold over you. Action provides clarity, momentum, and evidence that you are capable of navigating uncertainty. Consider this. The things that once terrified you, learning to ride a bike, speaking in front of a class, or starting your first job, are likely things you now handle with ease. Why? Because you faced the fear, took action, and proved to yourself that you could do it. Each time you confront a fear, you build confidence in your ability to handle challenges, which makes future fears feel less insurmountable. It's also important to recognize that fear often masks opportunity. The things we're most afraid of are often the things that have the greatest potential to transform us. Fear is a signal that something matters. If you didn't care about the outcome, you wouldn't feel fear in the first place. By reinterpreting fear as a signpost rather than a stop sign, you can begin to see it as a guide toward what's worth pursuing. Instead of asking, "What if I fail?" ask, "What if this fear is pointing me towards something valuable?" Failure, of course, is always a possibility, but failure is not the end. It's a step on the path to success. Every failure provides a lesson, an opportunity to learn, adapt, and grow stronger. The fear of failure diminishes when you reframe it as a necessary part of the journey. Think of anyone you admire for their achievements. Their success is likely built on a foundation of failures, setbacks, and mistakes. What separates them is their willingness to persevere in the face of those challenges. You have the same capacity within you, but only if you're willing to risk failure in the pursuit of something greater. Another key to confronting fear is surrounding yourself with support. Fear thrives in isolation. When you keep your fears to yourself, they grow in intensity, feeding on your self-doubt. But when you share your fears with others, whether it's a trusted friend, mentor, or community, you gain perspective and encouragement. Others can remind you of your strengths, offer guidance, and help you see possibilities you might have overlooked. Together, you can face challenges that might seem insurmountable on your own. In the end, fear is not a sign that you're weak or incapable. It's a sign that you're alive, that you care, and that you're standing at the edge of growth. By acknowledging fear, questioning it, and acting in spite of it, you reclaim your power and open the door to a life of greater purpose and fulfillment. Fear will always be a companion on the journey, but it doesn't have to dictate your path. With courage, persistence, and a willingness to embrace the unknown, you can transform fear from an obstacle into an ally. Regret is a powerful and often painful emotion. It stems from a recognition of missed opportunities, unfulfilled potential, or paths left untaken. When we reflect on our lives, it's not the things we tried and failed at that tend to haunt us the most. It's the things we never attempted, the chances we let slip by. These regrets linger, filling us with a sense of what if that can be hard to shake. And yet, regret is not just a source of pain, it is also a source of insight and motivation. If we allow it to, regret can serve as a guide, reminding us of the importance of living fully and courageously, so that when we look back, we can do so with pride rather than remorse. End quote. One of the most common sources of regret comes from fear. Fear of failure, rejection, or embarrassment. This fear keeps us stuck in our comfort zones, convincing us that staying safe is preferable to risking discomfort. But in doing so, we often sacrifice the experiences that give life depth and meaning. We hold back from pursuing our dreams, expressing our true selves, or taking bold steps toward what we desire. Over time, this avoidance accumulates into regret, as the opportunities we passed up become more apparent in hindsight. The reality is that life is finite. Time, unlike money or material possessions, cannot be replenished. Each day, each moment is a chance to live in alignment with your values, pursue your goals, and create meaningful connections. When you let fear or hesitation dictate your choices, you squander that precious resource. It's easy to put things off, telling yourself you'll act someday, but someday is not guaranteed. The longer you wait, the more opportunities slip through your fingers, leaving you with the weight of unfulfilled potential. Regret often teaches us about the importance of priorities. Many people find that the regrets they carry aren't about material possessions or superficial achievements. They're about relationships, personal growth, and contributions to the world. At the end of life, people rarely wish they had spent more time at the office or accumulated more wealth. Instead, they wish they had spent more time with loved ones, taken more risks, or been truer to themselves. These reflections highlight what truly matters and remind us to focus our energy on what will bring lasting fulfillment. But how do we live in a way that minimizes future regret? The answer lies in aligning your actions with your values and taking deliberate steps toward what matters most to you. This doesn't mean living recklessly or without caution. It means living intentionally. It means being honest with yourself about what you want and pursuing it with courage and determination. It means prioritizing what's important and letting go of what's not. One way to do this is by asking yourself hard questions. What would I regret not doing if my time were limited? What risks am I avoiding because of fear? What relationships deserve more of my attention and effort? These questions can be uncomfortable, but they are essential for gaining clarity about your priorities. When you take the time to reflect, you begin to see where you're holding back and where you need to take action. Self-awareness is the first step in living a life that feels authentic and meaningful. Action is the antidote to regret. Even small steps can make a significant difference. If you've always wanted to write a book, start with one paragraph. If you've dreamed of traveling, begin planning a trip. If you've avoided mending a relationship, reach out with a message or phone call. These actions might seem small in the moment, but they carry immense power. They represent a choice to engage with life rather than let it pass you by. And even if your efforts don't yield the desired outcome, you'll have the satisfaction of knowing you tried. It's a far better alternative to the regret of inaction. End quote. It's also important to recognize that mistakes and failures are part of the process. Many people avoid taking risks because they fear making the wrong choice or falling short of their goals. But failure is not the opposite of success. It's a stepping stone toward it. Each mistake is an opportunity to learn, grow, and refine your approach. In fact, the most successful people are often those who have experienced the most failures because they were willing to take risks and persevere. Regret is rarely about what we failed at. It's about what we never gave ourselves the chance to experience. Another crucial aspect of minimizing regret is being present. Life is made up of moments, and when we rush through them, distracted or disengaged, we miss out on the richness they offer. Regret often stems from realizing too late that we didn't fully appreciate the time we had with loved ones, the opportunities before us, or the beauty of ordinary moments. Practicing mindfulness, being fully present and engaged, allows you to savor life as it unfolds, reducing the likelihood of looking back with regret. Forgiveness is also a key component of dealing with regret. Sometimes we carry regret not just for what we didn't do, but for the mistakes we made. Holding on to guilt or shame can be debilitating, but it's important to remember that no one is perfect. Acknowledging your mistakes, learning from them, and forgiving yourself allows you to move forward. Regret doesn't have to be a permanent burden. It can be a catalyst for change and a reminder of your capacity to grow. Ultimately, the goal is not to eliminate all regret. It's impossible to live without making mistakes or missing some opportunities. The goal is to live in a way that aligns with your values, passions, and aspirations, so that when you reflect on your life, you can do so with a sense of pride and gratitude. By taking action, embracing growth, and focusing on what truly matters, you can minimize the weight of regret and maximize the joy and fulfillment of your journey. Life is short, but it is also full of potential. Don't let the fear of regret stop you from living boldly. Let it inspire you to live fully. In the end, life is both fleeting and precious, and how we choose to live it matters immensely. Each day offers us a new opportunity to grow, to act, and to create a future that aligns with our highest aspirations. But this requires courage, a willingness to face fear, take small but meaningful steps, and embrace the discomfort of the unknown. It requires a commitment to invest in ourselves, to continually improve, and to prioritize what truly matters over fleeting distractions or empty pursuits. And it requires the wisdom to learn from our regrets, not as sources of shame, but as guides to a better path forward. As you reflect on your own journey, ask yourself what kind of life you want to look back on. Will it be one filled with purpose, courage, and connection, or one weighed down by fear, hesitation, and missed opportunities? The choice is yours. Don't waste another year of your life waiting for the perfect moment or avoiding the discomfort of growth. The time to act is now. Start where you are, take one step at a time, and let those small, consistent efforts lead you toward the life you were meant to live. With each choice you make, you shape not only your future, but the legacy you leave behind. Choose wisely, choose boldly, choose to live fully.